And, you know, and I got the uniform. Now you get the pants. And then you're pulling the helmet out. You know where that goes. And all of a sudden you see this box. It says bike. And you go, that's not like a bike. And then you realize, oh my God, that's one of the things that the big guys wear, you know? And you're putting your jock strap on. I've seen guys put them over their helmets to think it was a face mask, okay? So that's the flashback I had. This is my first game. Like, where do I put this stuff, okay? And I put it. And, you know, I broadcast the first half. And at halftime, a guy tapped me on the shoulder and said, Mr. Packer. I turned around like this. I said, yeah. He said, you want a Coke? I said, yeah. He said, oh, announcers don't pay for Cokes. I said, is this the job or not? It's unbelievable. And the game ends. I get through the game, and I'm driving home. And I get to Burlington, North Carolina, and I say to myself, hey, you know, that was a lot of fun. I'm coming kind of down off the high. I get to Kernersville, North Carolina. I get the window rolled down. I said, oh, hell, you know, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at this. By the time I get home, and it's late by then, it's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, the light's on in the bedroom. And I go in and I say, oh, Bar, I'm sorry getting home so late, but, you know, when you're an announcer, you know, you get home late after games. And I said, what'd you think? She said, oh, you weren't so bad. And I said, oh, no, what are you talking about? I'm really good at this. And I said, but I promise you, because I don't want to stay out late. I've never been one of those kind of guys. I said, so after I broadcast the national championship and the Olympics, I'll quit this job, okay? And, you know, I got a chance to do the Olympics 2 times. I had a chance to broadcast 34 national NCAA basketball tournament championships. So, you know, when we start thinking about riding home from Raleigh, when you didn't even know you were going to work or play, that's a better term, and end up doing that, when we start thinking about where we are in this country right now, if we can think out of the box and start thinking of things that we can do to uplift all of our spirits by cooperating together, and some ideas that I threw out there may seem like they're totally unreasonable, but I don't think that they are, and I think they can be justified. I think that's what we have to do to pull everybody up by their bootstraps, and I think that that's what we'll do in this America. So just as I open this book, and I'll hopefully come back here next year, the fear has subsided and we're moving in the right direction, because that is what America is all about. I thank you very much for having a chance to spend some time with you today. I'll be, as I said, I'm Polish, often wrong and never in doubt, so I'll answer the question just so you understand what might be the answers, okay?
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we're listening to former sportscaster and businessman Billy Packer. We'll return to Billy in just a minute for our traditional City Club questions. We encourage you to formulate your questions now, and remind you your questions should be brief and to the point. Today's forum is the annual Herbert and Nettie Borstein Forum, which recognizes a very generous gift to the City Club Forum Foundation Endowment. We're also pleased to welcome to our forum today students who are here as part of our City Club student program. Participation of these students is made possible by a generous contribution to the City Club from the First Energy Foundation. With us today are students from Aurora High School, Cleveland School of Architecture and Design, and the Ginn Academy. Will our student guests please stand and be recognized? Nice to have you with us. Congratulations, Roy, on your state football championship. You're welcome. Also today, we're pleased to welcome guests at tables hosted by Baker Hostetler, Porter Wright Morrison Arthur, RBC Management, and Western Reserve Partners. Thanks for your support. Now we'd like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphones today are Communications and Outreach Coordinator Deborah Agosti and PR and Programs Manager Carrie Miller. Billy, would you come back up to the podium? Thank you.
We'll have some fun with this. I didn't realize that we had to be R-rated a little bit. I didn't know we were on television. I haven't been on television much before, so I hope the people at home weren't upset that we had a curse. My wife would really be upset with me.
Mr. Packer, welcome to Cleveland,
yeah.
The final residence of the late, great John McClendon.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
direct link back to Naismith, because
yes.
he was a student at Kansas. And he was a great fan of the Cleveland State basketball team here. I'm a longtime basketball fan. I remember as a high school student laying in my bed on the 3rd floor at Elkton, Maryland, and listening to the ACC games, the old ACC that you played in with 8 teams from think Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, as I remember. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's how I got it hooked on basketball, probably, as well as other sports. Since you were a student athlete in the 50s, 60s, I'd like you to compare the differences from that time to now, but not the superficial things like there's a lot more media attention. What's the difference in academics, do you think? What's the difference in team camaraderie or, you know, working with a coach like Bones McKinney compared to a current coach, that kind of stuff, training methods, etc.?
The modern athlete, not only physically, is much more gifted than people that played in my era and certainly beyond that era. There is no question about that. He's bigger, faster, stronger. I think that, to be quite honest with you, he also academically is much better oriented for the academic work than were the people in my era, and gets an incredible amount of support in his academic opportunities to move forward. Now, the big problem that's, you know, there are hundreds of thousands of NCAA athletes. Unfortunately, what we only hear about are some of the gifted few in the direction that they're going. You know, intercollegiate athletics provides an unbelievable opportunity for men and women in so many different sports to not only pursue their goal of staying in great shape, but participating on a team and being part potentially of a championship. There are over 80 now championships, men and women, in NCAA sports. So from that standpoint, the athletics have grown in a very positive way. What is not positive is this, and particularly in the sport that I've been involved with in basketball. And I'll just throw something out in football. And every college president in America, you know, they a lot of times they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. We have this year over 150 guys that left high school to in effect start to matriculate at their college choice so that they can be involved with the college spring football. Now, you know, think how disgusting that is. If you're a college president, you say, no, that kid needs to, no, and I'm not saying academically they're falsifying anything. I'm not saying academically those kids didn't qualify. But you know what? In life, there's a reason why you go to high school. In life, there's a reason why you go to grade school, and then you make the grade school team, and then you play on the high school to the junior high team, and then someday you play on the college team. The natural maturation process of our kids in athletics, we've lost sight of that because of some of the gifted. LeBron James comes along once every 15 years. You know, with Kareem Jabbar, you pretend like LeBron James is the first guy. Like Kareem Jabbar was ready to play in the NBA when he was a sophomore in high school. But, you know, in those days, you went through the natural maturation process. He finishes high school. He goes to UCLA, does not play as a freshman. In effect, gets an opportunity to get acclimated to university. Plays 3 years at UCLA, and then goes out to be a professional athlete. Do you think for 1 second that hurt Kareem Jabbar to go through the natural maturation process? And he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. So what we've gotten away from now is this maturation process has been completely destroyed. So what do we have? We have guys out there that are in the marketing of 11 and 12-year-old kids in basketball. Oh, I spotted a kid in the AAU game in the 12-year-old league. Well, now let's get an entourage for that kid. Let's get him prepared to go to the next level. Now, how about if he learns how to play junior high school basketball? You know, how about if he learns what teamwork is all about? How about if he learns how to have a balanced life so that he becomes a better person? Because you know what? There's only 400 and 500 jobs in the NBA. You know how many kids play basketball when they're 11 years old? Hundreds of thousands. Who's going to be the one that makes it? Timmy Duncan, you know, has won championships. You know, when he was recruited at Wake Forest, it's really funny. That year they recruited 3 kids that were foreigners. A kid from France, a kid from Nigeria, and Duncan from the Bahamas. Duncan was an afterthought. I mean, you know, we'll take him. He's big. He had no place to go. He might go to. He comes to Wake Forest. The other 2 kids were ruled ineligible that first year. Duncan has to play because there's no room for you got to start him. I see him play in December. I say, you know, this kid's not bad. He really has some good hands. By the time I see him play in February, I said, this guy's going to be a player. You know, by the time I see him as a sophomore, not only is he going to be a player, he can help a team win big games.